Have you ever hit that wall in the afternoon? Where your brain just completely refuses to focus? Well, it's not your fault. It's actually your brain's daily energy cycle at work. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that hidden rhythm, from feeling sharp as a tack in the morning to being totally drained by evening.
I mean, seriously, we've all been there, right? It's 3 o'clock, you're staring at a screen, and your brain just feels full. You're trying your best to concentrate, but that mental horsepower you had this morning, it's just gone. So what is actually happening inside our heads?
Well, it turns out this whole process is not random at all. Your brain is actually running on a really predictable 24-hour cycle of buildup and, well, release. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how that cycle works. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so to really get this, we need to understand that this feeling of mental fatigue isn't just one simple thing. You can actually look at it from two different angles. There's a chemical story and let's call it a functional story. But as you're about to see, they're really just two sides of the very same coin.
So on one side, you've got the chemical story, and the main character here is a molecule called adenosine. Think of it as the physical evidence of fatigue building up in your brain. And on the other side, we have the functional story. This is the feeling of being tired, which we'll call residual strain. Two different names, but they tell one single story.
So, let's track what happens from the moment you wake up in the morning. How does your brain go from feeling fresh and ready for anything to feeling completely saturated by the end of the day? It is all about the buildup. Let's start with our chemical culprit, adenosine. The absolute easiest way to think about this stuff is as your brain's sleep pressure gauge. It's a totally natural byproduct. Every single time one of your brain cells uses energy, every single time it leaves a little bit of adenosine behind.
So here's how it works, step by step. Your brain runs on this high-octane fuel called ATP. When your brain uses that energy, the ATP breaks down, and one of the leftovers from that process is adenosine. Now here is the crucial part. While you're awake, you are making this stuff way faster than your brain can get rid of it. So the longer you're awake, the more you're thinking, the more that sleep pressure just builds and builds and builds. It's the literal, physical price of being conscious.
Now for the other side of that coin, residual strain. This is simply the experience of that chemical buildup. You can imagine it as a kind of cognitive friction. It's like an echo of all the mental heavy lifting you've done all day, leaving your brain's pathways feeling a bit, well, gummed up.
So the takeaway here is really simple. Every email you write, every problem you solve, every decision you make, it all adds to the pile. The more you think, the more chemical adenosine you produce, and the stronger that feeling of residual strain becomes. They go hand in hand.
But okay, here's where it gets really fascinating. This fatigue, this strain, it's not spread evenly across your brain like peanut butter. No. Some parts of your brain are working way harder than others. And you know what? They get tired first.
And just look at how perfectly the functional story and the chemical story line up here. Take a look at the prefrontal cortex. That's your CEO, the part that does all the planning and heavy thinking. It experiences the highest functional strain. And what do you know? It also shows the strongest buildup of chemical adenosine. It's a perfect match. It just proves that the parts of your brain you use the most get the most tired.
Okay, so this brings us to the climax of our daily story. After all these hours of buildup, of rising pressure, what is the final tipping point? What tells your brain, all right, that's enough, it's time to shut down for the night?
Well, it turns out it's not just one thing. Your brain is actually waiting for two very specific signals to come together before it gives the order to fall asleep.
The first trigger is external. It's a global power down command. As the light starts to fade in the evening, your brain gets that environmental cue to just slow everything down. The second trigger is internal. It's that local, hey, the brain is full signal. Your adenosine levels and your residual strain have finally hit their peak. So when the world outside gets quiet and the world inside gets noisy with fatigue, that is the magic moment.
And this quote from the research really just nails what happens next. It says, sleep begins when strain slows the brain's activity below a critical level, breaking long-range cortical loops. Now, in plain English, what are those loops? They're basically the connections that hold a coherent thought together in your head. You know that feeling right before you drift off where your thoughts start to get all jumbled and make no sense? That is literally those connections breaking down. It's pretty amazing.
So after all that build-up, we finally get to the best part, the resolution.
This is the all-important brain reset that happens while you're asleep. And let me be clear, this is not just passive rest. It is an active, vital maintenance process.
While you're sleeping, your brain's cleanup crew gets to work. It's busy flushing out all that adenosine that built up. It's releasing the residual strain from your neural pathways. It's restocking the brain's energy stores, and it's basically getting the whole system rebooted and ready to fire on all cylinders for the next day.
And here it is, the entire cycle in one simple chart. You start the morning fresh, with low fatigue and low strain. Throughout the day, it steadily builds to a peak in the evening. That peak triggers sleep, and after a night of deep cleaning, you wake up the next morning, totally reset and back to a low-strain state, ready to do it all over again.
Okay, this is all super interesting, right? But why does it really matter for your everyday life? Well, it matters because once you understand this rhythm, you can start to work with your brain instead of constantly fighting against it.
So think of this as your daily brain toolkit. Mornings are prime time for deep, focused work because your brain strain is at its lowest. Feeling that afternoon slump? A short nap can literally clear out adenosine and give you a powerful reset. And interestingly, the late afternoon, even with rising strain, can be a fantastic time for learning. That tired, high-strain evening brain, it's not great for spreadsheets, but it can be more open to creative, out-of-the-box thinking. But the biggest takeaway of all is this: sleep is completely non-negotiable. It is the only way to hit that factory reset button.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. You now basically have the user manual for your brain's daily energy cycle. So how are you going to use it to sync up your day, your work, and your rest?